Greetings, all you internet YouTubers out there, or who I like to refer to as intertubers, that are interested in overlanding and overlanding gadgets that go with it. And I wanted to discuss with you today some of the advantages and some of the challenges that I've faced in choosing my solar generators, as they're called, or power stations is what I refer to them as. And so 3 or 4 years ago, when we first started doing this in my research, the popular brand at the time was Jackery, a well-known company, and now has a little older technology than the more modern power stations, but we'll talk about that again here later. And so what I wound up getting as my first one, not knowing what my power requirements were going to be, other than my CPAP machine and some camera batteries, I opted for the Jackery 500 here, and it served us quite well. I mean, it works. It works well. It's older battery technology compared to what you can get now. But the one issue I've had with it, and this is just something that came up recently, was that the display no longer displays anything. It's so, I don't know what the state of charge is. I don't know what the state of discharge is. All I can do is plug in and then charge it up before I go somewhere, and it runs out whenever it runs out, and I have no idea when that might be. The Jackery, you know, it was sized right. It was priced fairly well, although I think a week after I bought it, it came on sale for something like 50 bucks off. And so I immediately let Jackery know that I wanted the discount. Well, they didn't give me the discount, but they did send me this very nice bag for it. And also small power bank that I use quite often. And so don't be afraid to ask for a refund or some compensation for a discount that you might have missed. So in my quest for power on our overlanding trips, got a little bit more demanding. I added another smaller 300 watt power bank by Fantic, I believe is what it was. Small enough that it could go up into the tent with me to support my CPAP, and then this we used for everything else. So that gave me about, what, 800 watt hours of power. And then recently, one of our most recent trips, by the way, I have 4 of these things now. Yeah, it seems like every time a YouTuber out there promoted one of their products and they were on sale, I went ahead and investigated it, and if I thought I needed it, I purchased it. I actually now have 4 power stations, 2 of them are which are the BLUETTI AC-180, and I'll show you that here in a minute. And I've got a much smaller EB3A, and that's the one now that I use in the tent for my CPAP. Actually, I purchased 2 of the BLUETTI AC-180s because at the time they were about 50 cents per watt hour, and when you can buy 1100 watt power bank for $500 or $600, that's really a pretty good deal, especially with the BLUETTI, and I'll get into that. But there's another reason. Monica and I, she's still working, and so I don't get out. We don't get out quite as often as some people would. But when we do, on the last trip we were out, we actually had difficulty running power, or actually had difficulty with running out of power, I should say. I do have a solar panel. It's a folding solar panel. It's a 100-watt solar panel. But I'm not keen on solar, never have been. It mostly just rides around with us. I rarely use it because I'm either parked in the shade or we're rolling between campsites, and I don't have any way to attach it to the roof, or I don't have a hard shell rooftop tent that I can mount a solar panel to. It's only 100 watts, and at best, I've been able to get out of it is roughly 85, maybe 90 watts if I set the panel up just exactly right and the sun is directly overhead. There's some losses in solar, and so I'm not a big fan of solar, and I've come up with several ways to deal with that. On the BLUETTI AC180, which I have right here, I should put it up here for you. Oh, as I strain myself, it is on the heavy side, but fairly compact for the amount of power that this thing punches. And I have two of these. I have one of these at my other home in Prineville as a backup power supply there for my stepson who's a tenant there. They're prone to losing power there too, and I just thought, since they're on sale, you can get them at a good price. I picked up another one for there. This one I used to carry around in the Gladiator all the time. I just kind of left it in there, but you know, it takes up room in the footwell behind my seat. It adds weight, and if I only use it 2 or 3 weeks out of the year, you know, what is it really good for? Well, I'll tell you what it's really good for. I'm a ham radio operator. I belong to the amateur radio emergency services group here locally. So when I'm not out overlanding and we're not doing other things, I lend my radio station and my talents and my skills and abilities to support emergency services for schools, hospitals, fire stations, police stations in the event of an emergency. And the whole idea behind having a station like that is that it's on the air all the time, or it's on emergency power of some sort. In other words, it's useless to have a station that's plugged into the wall if you have no power. And so I have been using the AC180 to provide that power. Now it only has, I think, 1100 and some odd, 1152 watt hours, which is fine. That's a lot of watt hours, and in standby it'll run my station for days. As soon as you start talking on it though and using up a lot of power, it will take a hit, but I've devised a way to double its capacity. Fairly conveniently, not as cheap as I thought, but I'll explain that to you here in a little bit. So when I use this out in the field, I've got another way that I charge it that does not involve solar. And that's because in Oregon, solar is a crapshoot, and I don't always park in the shade or in the sun. I like to park in the shade sometimes. And then when you put out your panel, there's quite a bit of management that goes along with it. Adjusting the angles, turning them so they track the sun properly to get the most out of the panel. And if it's only a 100-watt panel, if this were flat, it would take almost 12 hours of direct sunlight to charge. So what I did was, well, why don't I have this guy explain it to you? Okay, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in here. And it's not really the BLUETTI. That is new. The last couple of campouts we were on, we were ran short of power a couple of times, and I'm sorry, but solar just can't keep up. So I came up with another solution. I'll show you that here in a minute. Okay, here's what's actually happening here behind the seat. This is an addition that I made in order to charge the BLUETTI, as you see there, and my EB3A. The EB3A and this AC 180 charge from house power, like most of them do. And if you can provide a pure sine wave, house power, or at least it thinks it's house power, that BLUETTI will charge up in about 3 hours of driving time rather than about 10. Let me explain why. The BLUETTI will charge when you plug it into the house current at about 1100 watts, 1.1 kilowatts. Can you imagine that? That takes about an hour to charge that A1C from flat to 100%, about an hour and 10 minutes. If you don't have house current, then you're stuck using the DC input, and you're either plug it into your cigarette lighter at 12 volts and maybe 100 watts. That would take 11 hours. Solar panel, not much better unless you got a bunch of them, and I only carry one 100 watt panel, and if I got a full 100 watts out of it, which you don't, there's some efficiency problems there, you're still looking at about 10 hours solar. So what I did was I bought a 500 watt pure sine wave inverter. Now 500 watts, you say, well, that won't support 1100 watts of charging. Well, no, it doesn't, but the BLUETTI can be turned down to about 400 watts of charging, and that is more than enough for this. It has to be a pure sine wave. Now, you're going to have to spend a little extra. Wire it directly to your battery, and you're going to want to run your Jeep or your vehicle in order to keep the battery charged. Okay, here I've gone into my BLUETTI app. That's the nice thing about the BLUETTIs. They're app controlled, and it's a very simple app. You'll see here that you have several charging modes. Standard mode, this thing will charge at 1100 watts. That's 1.1 kilowatts. Though if you put it into silent mode, let me show you what happens. In silent mode, it charges at, looks like 260 watts, and from 73% to 100% it's going to take about an hour and a half. So that's a little over 3 hours from flat to 1152, as long as you're driving. Most of us drive more than 3 hours, and it will top this off completely. Much faster than solar or the DC charge off of your car battery through a cigarette lighter plug. So just remember, make sure you get an inverter that's high enough in output to sustain this kind of a charge on this unit, and it has to be a pure sine wave inverter. Do not get the modified sine wave inverter. So as you heard there, I can charge this up in a few hours, and that is the nature of overlanding, at least for us. Now, some people think that overlanding is nothing more than car camping. For me, overlanding is traveling cross-country on unmaintained and back roads for long periods, rarely touching pavement, usually in a wilderness setting of some sort, and you don't come into contact a lot with the outside world, and most of the time you're driving between one point and another. And so what you just saw was a way that I can charge this, even if it's completely flat, to completely full during just an ordinary driving day, less than a driving day. So as you can see, there are other ways to charge these that are non-solar. And now I have come up with a way to double its capacity. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, this idea here came from my brother and a few other YouTube people out in the internet land that do this kind of thing, one of which his name is Will Prowse. If you're interested in anything at all that has to do with solar energy, tune in Will Prowse or come talk to my brother, because he's really got his stuff together. And he let me know that nowadays you can get, in this case, this is made by Watt Cycle, and it came highly recommended by Will Prowse. This is a 100 watt hour or amp hour, 200 or 1280 watt hour miniature lithium ion battery. It weighs 22 pounds, so it's not light, but it's not as heavy as an AGM or lead acid. Has far more capacity. And this particular one has a Bluetooth app. The last time when I purchased this one, you could get either with or without the Bluetooth app for 169 bucks, same price. So when the price dropped to 169, which is, I believe, less than a comparable solar panel, and it's a little easier to store, I went ahead and picked it up because it was a fairly good price. It's 12 volt, 100 amp hour, and this device, the BLUETTI, comes with this cable. So this is a PV cable. It plugs in here. I got the right hole? Yep, got the right hole. And it has some MP4 connectors on it so that you can charge this via solar. Well, like I said, one 100 watt solar panel, you might get 80 or 85 or 88 watts out of it. And once again, you're looking at hour upon hour upon hour of charging in the sun. So what my brother did was he let me know about this. I picked one up, and then he built some cables for me. So what in essence we're doing here is we're spoofing the PV input to think that this is a solar panel. It's just that simple. Okay? I can plug this in here and then plug the battery in, and I have effectively doubled its capacity. This will run for many, many, many hours. It tends to run off of the PV or off of the this battery and draw this down before. So what this is doing is keeping this up to charge. Once this goes away, you still have all 1158 watt hours left here. And so what I've effectively done is double the capacity of this without too much added expense. If I had bought a 200 or 400 watt solar panel that was compact and portable, sometimes they come in pairs, and then I'd have to figure out some way to haul them around. Right now, I keep my solar panel up in the tent because it closes down, it lays flat, and so that's fairly simple. Time you start hauling around 2 and 3 panels like I see some people do, and you're talking about major issue with trying to figure out where to store them, where they're safe, and ready for use if you need them. Me, I don't have any use for solar. I'm sorry. Call me what you will, but solar's just not my thing, especially in a place like Oregon. And since we're driving usually from place to place, you'd have to be sitting in one place in full sunlight for quite a while. You guys know the story. I'm sure there's some of you out there that know exactly what I'm talking about. But this simple thing here, let's see, it's at 76%. Let me turn on the Mini here. It is app controlled or app accessible. And let's go ahead and turn the discharge on. Connects with Bluetooth. It's a fairly nice app too. I'll show you a picture of it. All right, now this is charging this as though it were a solar panel. All right, as you can see, we're getting about 105 watts. Is that what it is? About 100 watts. This says 100. This says 105.1 watts at almost 8 amps. And the recharge time on it is 3.5 hours to get this up to full charge while this is discharging. Okay, now comes the big downside, the big surprise, right? I've got a Noco Genius charger that I use for my car batteries and such. Well, guess what? This is a lithium iron phosphate battery. It charges at 14.6 volts, and I don't have a battery charger that puts out 14.6 volts. Yeah, that's right. I ultimately had to buy a charger, and that's an added expense. I found one for about $40, and but it's still an added expense. And let me get back here. Still, it's an added expense, and it was one that I didn't expect. So this solution may not work for you, but for me and my power needs, out on the trail, this would last many, many days. And with the charging system that I just showed you, with the 500 watt pure sine wave inverter, I should never have any issue keeping this charged up. This is a different story. You'd have to charge it with that charger. So once this is depleted, if you didn't have the charger for it, and if you didn't have, you know, 110 to plug into, which actually this would provide. Oh, so maybe we've got some perpetual power here. Just plug this into this, charging this that charges, discharges this, that keeps this charged. Anyway, whoa, 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 hold it there. Kill the motor, dude. I should mention that you can recharge that battery with a solar panel. So if you happen to have a solar panel, like I do, and you need to put a charge on that, definitely hook it up to a solar panel. It has a built-in BMS, and yeah, just connect it to a solar panel and you'll be good to go. But anyway, yes, there was an added expense that was unexpected because I just didn't have the charger, but now I do. And that charger will charge this back up in a reasonably short amount of time, not nearly as fast as this. I believe with the charger, it's a 12 volt, 20 amp charger, but I think it still took 3 or 4 hours to bring this battery up from, I think it was 20% to fully charged. That's not too bad. But if you're out for a week, this will extend your watt hour usage of your BLUETTI or any other solar generator that can be charged with a solar panel. All we've done here is made this believe that this is a solar panel. And this works very well for me. I believe I showed you, or I will show you, how I've got it set up in my ham radio station so that I have always on emergency power, so that if we do have, like we did yesterday, I believe I got 3 tornado warnings here. I walked out when the first one came in, and I actually watched the rotator cloud go by at about 50 miles an hour. It was trucking, but it was rotating. Never did reach the ground. But in an emergency situation where I'm called on to help with communications between the fire department and the police department and emergency services, I know that I've got backup power that does not require the grid. So I hope this has been helpful. I don't know if any of you will employ the same method or technique, but if you do, I'll leave some links in the description for the battery and these power cables. I'd like to, but my brother custom made these for me as a Christmas present. So you'll have to figure this out on your own. But yeah, we've effectively, it's charging at 99 watts. Yeah. And it'll be full charge from about 75 to fully charged in about 3 hours. And it'll be interesting to see where the level that this is at. But like I said, it tends to favor the power from the PV first. And then once this goes dry or you unplug it, then you're left with 100% of your 1152 watt hours. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Give it a like and a subscribe. Leave some comments if you know anything about this Jackery here that the screen has gone blank on. I don't know what to do about it. I guess what I'll do is I'll tear it apart since it's not under warranty anymore, and maybe look for some wires that were poorly soldered or something to the LCD screen, you know, because they do take a beating. They do ride around in the truck. They get thrown around the campsite and up in the tent, and I've never misused it or abused it that I know of, but you know, just the vibration of traveling around could have possibly broke some wires or something in there, or disconnected the LCD screen for whatever reason. Anyway, if you know anything about it, leave a comment. If you have anything else to comment, feel free to do so. I'm Ted. This is the Black Pearl Voyager channel, and we'll see you out there. But you got to get out there first.